Okay, you see a hippo, and what do you think? Kind of goofy, right? Maybe a little bit clumsy looking, but for decades, it's had this absolutely terrifying reputation as Africa's deadliest large animal. But what if that whole story, the one we've all heard, isn't the real story? What if the truth is way more complicated and honestly, a lot more tragic?
So, let me ask you, when you picture Africa's deadliest large animal, what pops into your head? Come on, let's go through the lineup of the usual suspects.
Could it be the Cape buffalo? I mean, look at this thing. It is an absolute tank, and yeah, it's responsible for around 200 human deaths every year. A really solid guess, but nope, that's not the one we're looking for.
Okay, how about the rhino? They're powerful, they can be super aggressive, definitely a strong contender. But believe it or not, still not the animal with that top killer reputation.
All right, then it's gotta be the elephant, right? I mean, it's the largest land mammal on the planet, and they kill about 500 people a year. That is a huge number. But, amazingly, even that isn't the animal that's held the title in the popular imagination for so long.
No. The common wisdom, the story you've probably heard over and over again, it points to a much more surprising culprit. And this is the number, 3,000. That's how many human deaths a year get blamed on hippos in all those articles and documentaries. This is a statistic that basically cemented their reputation as Africa's #1 killer. But hang on. This is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because when actual scientists and fact-checkers start digging into the data, a totally different story starts to unfold. Get this. The real, verified number, it's closer to 500 deaths a year. 500, not 3,000. That's a massive difference, and it puts them on the exact same level as elephants. So, what is going on here? Why this huge gap between the myth and the reality? And how did they get that fearsome reputation in the first place? Well, this is the key to the whole puzzle. It turns out, while hippos might not have the highest number of attacks, when they do attack, they are incredibly deadly. One big study looking at data from Uganda found that a shocking 87% of hippo attacks on people were fatal. So, an encounter might be rarer than the myths say, but if you're unlucky enough to have one, it is one of the deadliest encounters possible in the animal kingdom.
Okay, so if these aren't just angry, unpredictable animals on a rampage, what's really going on? What's driving these fatal encounters between people and hippos?
It really all boils down to something experts call human-wildlife conflict, or HWC for short. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the situation that happens when a wild animal's behavior becomes a direct and repeated threat to a person's safety or their way of making a living. And really importantly, this conflict goes both ways. And for hippos, the drivers are crystal clear. This isn't about hippos being evil, it's about competition. Pure and simple. Think about it. People are trying to farm right next to the water sources hippos depend on. Both are competing for the same grazing land. Fishermen are in the same space. People and hippos accidentally bump into each other on trails at night when the hippos come out to eat. It is a textbook case of two populations fighting over the same shrinking patch of real estate. And the cost of living this close together, well, it's devastating. And it's devastating for both sides.
For people, the cost is just immense. You have the loss of life, of course, but also horrific, life-changing injuries. You have crops being destroyed, which means a family's income is gone, and the trauma, it affects entire communities. But make no mistake, it is just as brutal for the hippos. They face revenge killings, they get injured by people trying to fight them off, they get poisoned, and all the while their home is just disappearing.
And if you want to understand just how severe those injuries are, just look at this. A hippo's bite force is almost 3 times stronger than a lion's. That is incredible. It's why doctors don't just call these animal bites. They're classified as major trauma, the kind of injury you see in a serious car crash, often leading to amputations or lifelong disabilities. So who are the people most at risk? Well, this study from Burundi paints a very clear and very sad picture. A huge majority, over 80%, are young adult men. And why? Because these are the guys working as fishermen, as farmers, right there on the front lines, at the water's edge, putting them squarely in the hippos' territory, day in and day out.
And the payback against the hippos is just brutal. Data from Mozambique shows that for every one person killed by a hippo, almost 3 hippos are killed in revenge. That's a higher retribution rate than for elephants or even lions. It's a vicious cycle of violence, and it's just not sustainable.
It's a really bleak situation, for sure. But is there a way out of this? Is there any hope? Can we actually find a way for massive animals like hippos and people to share the same space?
Well, the good news is yes.
Conservationists are working on this exact problem, and the solutions fall into two main camps. You've got your direct methods, things you can physically build, like fences and trenches, and then you have the indirect methods, which are more about people and money, things like paying farmers for lost crops, educating the community, and sharing tourism dollars.
And here is a perfect example of a solution that isn't just a theory, it's actually working. It's the Child Community Hippo Sanctuary in Ghana, and it's brilliant. Step 1, they created a protected zone right along the river, just for the hippos to graze. Step 2, they established a development zone a little further out where people can use resources sustainably. And Step 3, the real game changer, they built an ecotourism business that brings money directly into the community. And the result? The hippo population is stable, other wildlife is returning, and the local people are actually benefiting from protecting the hippos.
So, when you boil it all down, what have we learned? The hippo isn't some bloodthirsty monster. It's a massive animal literally fighting for survival as its world shrinks. And amazing projects like the one in Wichio prove that there are ways for us to coexist. It is possible. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, as our two worlds collide more and more, can we be smart enough and compassionate enough to build a future where both people and hippos have a place to call home?